Xylene X Band. Are you looking for your next book to read this season or looking for another book to put on the stack? This book especially gets my attention because it's about a rock band, about a musician. I have the same background. By the way, not only do I have the book, I have the author here too. Welcome, Charles Harvey. Welcome, Charles.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be here.
Do I have that right? It's about a rock musician who's kind of a little bit burned out on doing that?
That's exactly right. Yeah, and the story is really kind of how he recovers from that.
How he recovers. Now, I think we could give this away because this is on page 1, right?
That is right. Yeah.
Tell our viewers what happens.
Well, what happens is that there's a rock and roll band in 1985 named X Band, and they're finishing up the third record of their 3-record contract. So they need another contract. Otherwise, they're pretty much has-beens already. But 1985 is, rap is coming on strong. And so, the labels aren't really looking at rock and roll bands anymore. They're looking at rap labels. So getting a contract is going to be difficult. Even their own label is not, they're holding back. And then while they're mixing their third album, the guitarist, Joe X, has like a seizure-like experience. And after that, he loses all memory of himself, but he believes he has the memories of somebody else named Mike Smith. And Mike is the opposite of Joe X in that he adapts well to the rock star, the job, but he doesn't have the skills, so he can't play guitar and he can't sing. And the challenge is to really keep that hidden, do the things you need to do to be a rock band if you can, and still look viable to get another contract. And so that's the challenge.
We've heard of this where people have a seizure and then wake up with an accent or a different personality or something like that.
Right. Well, it's really a Prince and the Pauper story where, somebody gets thrust into a desired role. Mm-hmm. So like the movie Dave, where somebody impersonates the president and then sort of becomes the president, and even though he really doesn't know anything about being president. Yeah. So this is that kind of story.
But it's a fascinating story and a fascinating approach to writing a book. And what a mind you have, Charles. Who's going to read this book? Who will like this?
Well, I started out writing it for young adults because I think young adults need a lot to read. But sort of the more I wrote it, the more complex and I don't really throw in a lot of adult themes, mm-hmm. but there is some bad language. But I really it kind of grew to become, common in a sort of a general fiction book. So I think I think it would be great if you were imagining what would it be like to be a rock star. Uh-huh. Then read this book. But the other thing that I didn't know when I was writing it is that, that's kind of a male fantasy. Mm-hmm. But a female fantasy is your over-controlling jerk husband wakes up and suddenly becomes a nice guy. And how do you adapt to that? So for young women seem to like the story.
That's great.
A lot because it falls into that.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating and interesting. But what I'm going to find interesting is how this works itself out in the end. That's why I can't wait to get my hands on the book.
You don't want me to spill those beans now?
Nope.
All right.
Where can you find this book?
You can buy it online from just about anybody. So,
all the usual places.
I self-published it, and the printer distributes to everybody. So you could go on Barnes & Noble, Thrift Books, Amazon. They all have it.
Yeah, I don't favor one over another, but man, I go to that Amazon, I press the button, and it's delivered for free, and it's always the next day. So, what a great operation.
Yeah.
Also, I like to go into bookstores and into Target and things like that and ask for the books of the guests who've been on my show.
Oh, going into a bookstore, it must be like what an alcoholic feels like going into a liquor store.
It is. It is. Harvey, when did you write this book? When did you start? When did you finish?
Oh, well, that's a good question, because the first idea for the book was in 1981, actually. I had a dream in which I had to go on stage and play guitar.
Oh, boy.
I didn't play guitar, and I didn't know what to do. And I thought, geez, I wonder if that would make a funny story. Like maybe I could get some laughs out of it.
Yeah.
And I started writing this story, and then I was taking a creative writing class in college. And I brought it to the class and read it. And, the other people in the class liked it. So I wrote it up as a short story. And later on, after college, I really decided, I really could fill this out with an actual plot. And so I started writing really the rough draft about 2002. And I wrote it just about every day up until 2008.
Wow.
And then I picked it up again in 2018 and finished it in 22. So
nice.
It's been a number of years. I think 9 years altogether working on it, and 41 years from concept to finish.
Well, my first thoughts were, haven't all of us dreamed of being an 80s rock star?
Oh, yeah, everybody my age has. Yeah.
All right, Charlie.
I would hope so.
They only give us 10 or 12 minutes here, Charles, so sorry about it. I could talk to you all day because your mind is fascinating in your creative process. Any last thoughts, anything you want our viewers to know?
Well, I guess too, in the book, there's a humor element. I think that it's not in the plot necessarily, but the characters interact with each other.
Yeah.
I think it's amusing.
Yeah.
I like doing the dialogue.
I hate to say this, but it kind of sounds like it could be a movie. It would be an interesting movie.
Oh, that's the dream. Yeah, I'd love that.
You'd have to star in it, Charles.
Well, I'd rather be the narrator.
There you go. Thanks for coming on and tell us about the book. Say the title again, because I get it wrong every time.
Okay, Xylene X-Band.
Xylene X-Band. And the main character starts out with what name and ends up with what name?
Joe X, and it's spelled ECKS.
Nice.
So it's Joe X, and he becomes Mike Smith. And believes himself to be a Harvard graduate.
Nice. Yeah. And he can't play a lick of the guitar then?
No.
All right.
No. And you know what? He doesn't really have a talent for it either.
Wow, that's fascinating in itself. All right, the book is Xylene X-Band. Go get it wherever you get your books. And thank you, Charles, and we'll be back with another author right after this.